Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Welcome everyone to the Esquire Coaching Radio Show. It's such a pleasure to be here with you tonight. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that is dedicated to helping attorneys achieve extraordinary whole life success. And to that end, we discuss the full range of topics from business building to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today we have a very special guest who's going to talk to us about an important topic. He's going to talk to us about how to use social media to generate new leads for your legal practice. Now, social media is being hailed as the must-use business strategy for the future. Many law firms have started experimenting with social media, but are having trouble understanding how to use social media to deliver real business results. What most firms lack is a good understanding of what social media for business is all about and how to put together a strategy that delivers results. Well, today, Guy Alvarez, the Chief Engagement Officer of Good to Be Social, will discuss and help us learn the basics of social media for business and how to use social media to generate new leads. Good to Be Social is a consulting company that helps firms and professionals in the knowledge industries understand how to use social media to delight their customers, engage with their prospects, and enable their employees to become more productive and innovative. Guy started out as a lawyer practicing international trade law at a boutique firm. While at the firm, he learned how to use the internet to attract new clients. In an effort to leverage what he had learned, Guy left the practice of law and focused on helping lawyers harness the power of the internet to market their own services. Guy has worked for American Lawyer Media, KPMG, LexisNexis, Practicing Law Institute, and Bernard Richard in various leadership roles with a concentration on digital marketing, enterprise collaboration, and social media. Whew, welcome, Guy.
Thanks, Joanne. Pleasure to be here.
So exciting to have you here. Such an exciting hot topic. We love talking about social media here on the Esquire Coaching Radio Show. I just want to, before we dive into the questions, I want to remind our callers that if you want to talk to Guy, there'll be time at the end of this interview to ask him some direct questions. Just call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. All right, Guy, let's dive right in. So how did you go from being a lawyer to a social media expert?
Well, that's a very good question. As you stated earlier, I did start practicing law, doing international trade law. And one of the things I learned is working for a small boutique firm in New York City, it was important to be able to have some sort of a global reach. And, you know, in a small boutique firm, marketing resources were limited. And so figured out how to use the internet to help my firm use the internet at that point to market their services. And basically what I used to do is I would run down to the Court of International Trade every morning, get the latest decisions, and use the technology back then called listservs or mailing lists to post the latest decisions and basically say, hey, this decision just came out. If there's a way that we can help you or if you have any questions about it, we'd be happy to help you out. And through doing that, I was able to attract many, many different clients, including the second largest cotton exporter in the United States, a multi-million-dollar account. So through that, I learned about the power of the internet and how lawyers could leverage the internet for marketing purposes and for lead generation purposes. Go forward many, many years later, I was involved in a business that produced conferences, and we produced the first ever conference on the topic of social media here in New York City at the law firm of Morrison & Foster. And during the conference, one of the speakers that we had was Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. And after the conference, I spoke to Reid and started to learn all about social media and realized how important this was going to be in the future. So after that conference, I decided to make it my mission to learn all about social media and start helping other firms how to use social media to generate new leads and to build awareness of their services.
Wow, that's amazing. And what foresight that you had, you know, to have that conversation and really realize the power and how to leverage this.
Yeah, well, it was just sort of an evolution of what I had done. So before social media was around, there was, like I said, mailing lists and Usenet groups and push technology and email marketing. But once social media came around, I realized that at the end of the day, what a lawyer does is share his or her knowledge. And so the ability to use technology to really become a thought leader and get your knowledge out there so that people know you're knowledgeable and know what your expertise is really a good way to attract new clients.
Love that. I love that. So what kind of clients do you typically work with?
So in our business, we work with a lot of different clients. We are primarily focused on what we call the knowledge industries, so law firms, consulting firms, accounting firms. But we also work with a wide variety of clients. Right now, for example, one of the clients that we're working with is an off-Broadway show, a theater show in Times Square, and we're helping them with their use of social media, not just to market the show, but also integrate the social media into the actual show. It's a highly interactive show, and so we're using the latest social media tools to make the overall user experience, the audience experience, be phenomenal. But we do work with all different kinds of companies. We are targeting and work primarily in the legal industry. And like you mentioned, I do work for LexisNexis. I've done work for Lexington Law Institute. We work with small firms and also some of the largest firms in the world.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I love that you're on the cutting edge and being able to really make a Broadway play, for example, so interactive. I think that's great. Now, you must see a lot of challenges, you know, especially within the law firm environment and trying to get our lawyers to get on the social media bandwagon. What's the biggest challenge that you have in working with your clients?
I would say really it's twofold. I think, number one of the biggest challenges is education, and that is really teaching lawyers the power of social media. A lot of lawyers, when they think of social media, they think of Facebook, and when they think of Facebook, they think of posting pictures of your friends or your family and sharing your stories, and they don't really see it as, how is this going to help me generate new leads? So one of the biggest challenges is to get lawyers to understand that social media can really be used as a thought leadership tool so that you can get out your knowledge, your expertise, so that people are aware of what you do and how good you are at doing it. So that's number one challenge. The second challenge is really a cultural challenge. We as lawyers are taught that knowledge is our biggest asset. And so many lawyers are very reluctant to share their knowledge. They think they have to protect their knowledge and really not give it away. So for them, the concept of actually going out there and sharing knowledge over social media networks is foreign, and really they react negatively to that. So it's all really about changing the mindset and getting them to understand that, in fact, the more knowledge you share, the more useful content you can put out there, the bigger the opportunity to create meaningful relationships which lead to new business opportunities.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad you said that, Guy, because I see this over and over again. You know, people have to understand, our lawyers have to understand that the whole market has changed. If you don't deliver value, if you don't share, you know, your information, you are behind the eight ball. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And what's going on today is, you know, legal services are becoming so competitive, and there are so many people out there that really the opportunity to differentiate yourself is really important. So, you know, having and sharing useful knowledge and useful information is critical to make yourself different from everyone out there. And secondly, using social media not just as a marketing tool, and a lot of people think, oh, social media is just another advertising channel. It's actually not. Social media is really an opportunity to engage on a personal level with your target audience and to build relationships that can lead to new businesses. So the model has really changed. In the past, lawyers would go to networking events or speak at conferences, and that's how they got their leadership out there. That's how they developed their relationships. That still works, but we only have so many hours in the day, and we can't be out at networking events every night and doing conferences on a daily basis. So to supplement that and to enhance it, social media is a fabulous tool that can allow you to network and build relationships literally while sitting at home in front of your computer or on your morning commute to work. So that's really what has changed. And those lawyers that understand that and are savvy enough to leverage it are really reaping incredible benefits and really are generating a lot of new leads and new clients from their activity in social media.
I love that. Can you walk us through a little bit, because you're talking, you're making such a great point about it being a great vehicle to establish thought leadership and to build relationships. But can you walk us through what that process is like? Like, how can a lawyer utilize social media to build relationships and really establish themselves as a thought leader?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest mistakes people make, not just lawyers, but pretty much anyone out there, is, again, as I said, they think of social media as just another advertising channel. And what they try to do is they create what I call promotional content. This is content that is selling themselves. And as we know, nobody likes to be sold to. So what happens is they get very frustrated because they're not getting any traction or any type of engagement with the content that they're creating. So what I tell clients and what I recommend to the listeners that are on this show right now is the first thing you need to do is you need to listen. Imagine that you're walking into a room full of strangers and you've never met anyone there. You're not going to go up to a stranger and say, hey, my name is Ty Alvarez. I'm the best lawyer in the world. Please hire me, please hire me, please hire me. Or I'm an expert in this and I'm an expert in that. People are going to think you're a freak. They're not going to want to talk to you, and they're certainly not going to hire you. So if you think about it from that perspective, think of social media in a similar perspective. And the first thing you want to do when you walk into a room full of strangers is you probably want to go up to a few people, introduce yourself, and really listen to what they have to say. And if there are opportunities for you to share your opinion or add some value, that's what starts earning people's trust. And so if you provide helpful information, valuable information, then people are going to say, wow, Guy really knows about this. Next time I need that service, or when my friend or my relative or my business needs a similar service, I'm going to recommend Guy because A, I trust him, B, he's not trying to sell himself, and C, he seems to be a thought leader and a knowledge expert in this particular field. So I would say the first thing you have to do is listen. Then second is to start to contribute by adding to the conversation. And then third thing, and most importantly, is when you publish information, when you publish content, it's got to be useful, valuable, engaging content. It can't just be all about sales and promotions, because then people will get turned off and they're not going to want to engage with you. They're not going to want to share your content and comment on your content and like your content.
Wow. That's really important. And it also sounds like, this is a long haul. This is not a sprint. It's really a marathon. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Nothing happens overnight. Again, social media is no different than, the reason it's called social media is because there's a social element to it. And so just like you're not going to build a relationship from one day to another, you're not going to build a relationship with social media from one day to another. In fact, it's a little bit harder than if you're meeting people face-to-face because the level of trust is not there right away. They're not looking at your face. They're not shaking your hand. And so it takes a little longer to start to build that trust and build that rapport. But the beauty of social media is if you take the time and energy to be really useful, really helpful, and to really demonstrate thought leadership and knowledge through time, people will trust you. And then ultimately what you want is you want to convert those people who trust you into your loyal fans or people that want to advocate your services to their networks. That's really the end goal, is to turn people into advocates, because that's where the power of social media really comes into play.
Well said. Well said. Now, how do you measure the return on investment of social media?
That's a great question, and that's a question that gets asked me every single day. And one of the things I like to say is, how do you measure the ROI of email? It seems kind of ridiculous, right? But when email first came around, that's what people were asking. Today, you don't ever question the ROI of email. We all know what email's for and how it's used and the value of communicating and the speed. Well, sort of that's what's happening with social media. It's not so easy to quantify what your return on investment is. But we do need to figure that out. And what we like to do with our clients is we help them create what we call KPI indicators. And so what we really measure is a couple of different things. We measure your reach. So how many people are you reaching when you're publishing content? And reach can be the number of followers on Twitter, or the number of likes on Facebook, or the number of network connections on LinkedIn, or the number of visitors to your site. So you want to grow that number as much as you can. Now, having said that, it's not all about quantity. You want to make sure that the way you're growing your reach is by people that are your target audience and that are interested in what you're saying and what you have to say. There are a lot of services out there that promise to deliver you, 100,000 likes on your Facebook page or 20,000 new followers on Twitter. And what they deliver is garbage. They're Twitter accounts that don't really exist or are barely ever used or are fictitious. So what you want to do is you want to build slowly with people that really value what you're saying. So that's reach. The second thing you want to measure is engagement. Engagement means how many people are engaging with your content. So how many people are liking your content? How many people are commenting on your content? How many people are sharing your content? Retweeting, mentioning, all of those things. And that's really important, because that means is you're not only reaching a lot of people, but those people are finding your content valuable enough so that you can that they're actually sharing it with their networks. And that's really where the amplification takes place, and the real value of social media really starts to demonstrate itself. And then finally, we try to look at some of the soft things. So is your brand, your personal brand or your firm brand, more known out there? Has their brand awareness been raised? Do you see more people talking about you? Do you see more people linking to your content? And just as importantly, has what you're doing started to generate some leads? So maybe now what you're doing on social media is growing your website traffic. Maybe you have a white paper there or a webinar or something like that, and people now are starting to give you their email addresses. At some point, hopefully, those people will contact you and say, hey, I have this situation, I have an issue, or someone I know does, or you were recommended by someone, will you hire me? Or can I hire you? And this takes time. It's not going to be overnight, but it does happen. It happens for me. It happens for a lot of my clients. If you're consistently giving useful, valuable content and information, and you're helpful, eventually you will get return on your investment.
I love that. Now, just give us a ballpark. How long do you think typically it would take to start seeing the fruits of your labor, that you're actually generating some new leads through your consistent social media efforts?
I would say usually on average it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months. At a minimum 3 months before you start to notice that you're actually developing a following and developing a voice on social media. So remember, what I said is you got to start by listening and then participating by answering questions or giving useful advice. That's going to take a little bit of time, and developing that trust with your target audience will also take some time. So I would say at a minimum 3 months, usually 3 to 6 months, you should start seeing some results.
Love that. Okay. Okay, that's so helpful because I think our lawyers need to understand that it does take a little bit of time. You're cultivating relationships, and basically you're not going to, get married on a first date, right?
No, that's correct.
That's the essence of what we're talking about here. Okay, so actually let me just take a moment to remind our callers that if you want to talk to Guy and have a question that you want to ask him directly, please call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. Okay. So, Guy, one thing you mentioned earlier is about the fact that this is not in person, but I see now there's more and more visual content, whether it's videos or pictures or images. Can you talk to us a little bit about this new frontier you referenced?
Absolutely. So one thing that's happening on social media with the launch of new social networks like Instagram and Pinterest and Vine and the growing importance of YouTube is more and more people want to see. It's sort of the show me, don't tell me kind of approach. And so while blog articles and white papers are still very important, a lot of times a short video or an infographic or an image that really represents and captures the imagination can really make all the difference. And we see this happening a lot in consumer brands. You have brands like Chobani, the Greek yogurt, or Delta and American Airlines, and many different companies are using visual elements very successfully in gaining huge followings on social media. When it comes to the legal industry, it's a little more difficult, and you have to be a little more creative. But that doesn't mean that you should just focus on the written word, and I understand that that's something a little foreign for lawyers. But the way that you can be more creative is figuring out how you can use visual elements to convey your knowledge and your information. One of the great tools to do that are infographics, which is a visual explanation of a concept or a visual explanation of a process. The advantage of doing things through visual is that when it comes to finding things on search engines, the competition on a visual level is much easier than it is on the written element. So if you do a search for certain terms and there's visuals that contain those terms, odds are that you're going to be ranking higher on the search engines than you would if you were just using the written word. So visuals are becoming extremely important. With everyone now having a smartphone that is capable of snapping a photo anywhere you are or doing a short video clip, there's really no excuse for not having more visuals. And the challenge for lawyers and law firms is to be creative and to figure out how you can utilize visuals to, again, differentiate yourself from your competition.
Wow. And talk about a new frontier, especially for the law firm environment. I think you're really giving our listeners some food for thought here.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to just ask you, sure, no, thank you. I think the information you've been providing so far is really great. One thing I wanted to just ask you, though, is can you give us an example, a specific example of how you've achieved success for one of your law firm clients?
Absolutely. So one of our law firm clients, for example, is a small boutique firm that the two partners that work for this firm came from a very, very large firm, an AmLaw 50 firm. And they left the firm and wanted to start their own firm. and they actually created they started a firm in Dumbo, in Brooklyn, and they wanted to be very much part of the startup technology business because that was their expertise, especially around crowdfunding. And so they looked to us to help them from a social media perspective to try to reach this audience. And this audience, primarily, tech startups are really young people that are bootstrapping startups and using crowdfunding techniques in order to build their businesses. And they could definitely use that the help of lawyers that are billing a little bit differently and using alternative billing practices so that they could afford to do the work while still afford to pay with lawyers. And so we help them with their social media strategy to reach this target audience in a very fun and youthful way. And as a result, they are now generating a huge amount of business within the tech startup community because they demonstrated their expertise around crowdfunding and all the legal issues and things you have to consider when you're a startup using crowdfunding as a source of funds.
That's a great story right there. It really shows the power and the importance of connecting with your ideal audience and really being able to use social media in a very powerful way. Can this work for any firm? Can social media really lead to success regardless of your firm size?
Absolutely. And in fact, we just finished a study that we did in conjunction with a publication called Above the Law, where we looked at the use of social media and how effective law firms are at using it. And what we found out, in fact, is that the smaller firms are actually more successful in using social media than the larger firms. And you would think it would be the opposite because larger firms have more resources, more money to spend. But the reality is that the large firm culture and the amount of control and centralization really is a disadvantage for them. And the smaller firms can be more nimble and more quick to react and really know that in order to survive, they have to be in a business development type of mode. So we found some of the most innovative things were actually happening at the small firm level. But yes, you could be a solo practitioner, you could be a small to mid-sized firm, or you could be a very large firm. If you know and understand what you're doing and you stick to it, any firm could be successful. I know, for example, a solo practitioner that does patent law, and he gets 100% of his new cases through social media and the internet. 100%.
Wow. Amazing. So what would you tell our listeners on what they need to do to get started in cultivating more social media for themselves?
So I would say a couple things. One is before you go ahead and start setting up your social media channels and start writing a blog or anything like that, is take some time to listen. Look at what your competitors are doing. Go to LinkedIn and see some of the groups that are up there. Join some of these groups. Don't say anything, just listen and get a sense for what people are talking about, what the tone is. If an opportunity comes up where you can provide some useful advice or you know the answer to a question, by all means do that. And then once you start to feel comfortable, you can start by signing up for Twitter, signing up for LinkedIn, obviously, adding a blog to your website, and start writing content. And slowly but surely, you will see the opportunity to grow your relationships and your impact through social media.
Excellent. I love it. So how can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you or your company directly?
So the best way is you can either email me directly at guy@good2bsocial.com, and that's good, the number 2, the letter B, social.com, or on our website at www.good2bsocial.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, either at good2bsocial or my personal Twitter account, GuyLaw1313.
Perfect. Guy, this has been such a great interview. Thank you for sharing such amazing tips and advice here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann. It's been my pleasure. I hope all your listeners got some value out of it, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Perfect. All right, listeners, let's keep this conversation going. Tell us what you thought of this interview on our Facebook account or our Twitter. You can get all of our links through our website, www.esquirecoaching.com, and we look forward to speaking with you next week when we talk about the power of influence. Until then, be well.